What's up? What's up? I'm Dr. Omatma, host of Egg Meets Sperm, where we're busting fertility myths, sharing tangible tips for your fertility journey, and bringing you the most knowledgeable guests to support your journey to parenthood. This podcast is for both women and men because getting fertile as fuck is for both partners, don't you think? Remember, just listening to this podcast won't get you pregnant, but following the tips we share just may. Let's get you fertile AF so that you can co-create the family you dream of. And if your partner's not listening to this, make sure to share this episode with your partner. Welcome to Egg Meets Sperm. My guest today is Kristy Rodriguez. She's a mom, a HypnoBirthing childbirth educator, certified holistic health coach, and registered prenatal yoga instructor specializing in prenatal and postpartum wellness, advocacy, and empowerment. With her cumulated years of experience in education and health, she brings extensive knowledge, personal experience, and deep compassion to her students. She's also the author of Pure Nurture, a holistic approach to a healthy baby, and the most incredible podcast called Pure Nurture. If you guys aren't listening to it, you definitely need to tune in for that. Welcome, Kristy. It's so great to have you.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here with you.
I'm so excited to talk about something that I love and that I feel like we don't get to dive into a lot often, which is like the mind-body connection when it comes to fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, all of it. Like our mind-body connection is a present thing all the time. We just don't necessarily always think about it. So can you tell us a little bit about what you understand or mean, or how you might explain this to your students as far as like, what is the mind-body connection and why does it matter so much?
You know, it's something I've been interested in for a really long time. And I first was introduced to this idea, probably 20 years ago through yoga. And I started really feeling into what that meant when I was doing yoga, my yoga practice. And in certain positions, you know, we get into a stretch and maybe hold the stretch and just breathe, and emotions would come out of nowhere. And it was so fascinating to me that, you know, that I could feel really, really deep grief and sadness, but not have a thought about it, like not thinking about something in my past and then crying because of something I was thinking. It was really something in my body. And so that's a piece of it that started engaging me and making me want to learn more, a piece of it. And then from there, I also was made aware of this idea of mind-body connection, body-mind connection when my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And up until that point, I was also just very focused on the allopathic method, you know, surgery, chemo, radiation, that's it. But through his healing, I became more aware of energy healing, the power of the mind and the thought and what you're focusing on. He used to watch, what is that show called? The SVU unit, Law and Order. And at one point I remember thinking, maybe we should watch like some comedian, you know, shows that are comedies and fun. And so it was really this slow process of different life experiences that made me really feel like this is a powerful thing and I want to know more. So the final step in this was when I became pregnant, and again, realizing the power of the mind and the body and how they work together. And something that was the most impactful of anything was when I was taking my HypnoBirthing classes. And that's where it really was solidified, where you really want to focus on what you want versus what you don't want. You want to focus on all the things that you want to surround yourself with. And then it can move on into parenting as well, where you say to a child, don't run. The only thing the child hears is run, right? Because the don't just kind of gets, off to the side. And so it's the same thing with pregnancy, birth, raising children. Focus on what you want. Don't focus on what you don't want, right? So all of these pieces, I'm just giving really general examples to start with of how powerful our body is and that connection. The biggest example is the placebo effect, right? When they do pharmaceutical testing on different drugs, and they talk about the placebo effect. What is the placebo effect? It's the mind's power over the body, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there is like that impact of you think you're doing this thing that is going to help or have a beneficial effect, and then it happens, whether or not you have the medication is really amazing. And the I think it's also interesting how different fields of medicine have responded to that effect, right? Some doctors are like, well, that's just placebo. And for other people, it's like, no, that's placebo. Like, don't you see?
Exactly.
It's so
That's
amazing.
Incredible. And I don't know
Yeah.
if you've heard of the nocebo effect,
Yeah.
which is the opposite, right? The negative experience of something. And I got so passionate about the mind-body connection that I applied to university and was in process of getting my PhD in mind-body medicine.
Yeah.
But finally, I realized how much time and effort it was. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to wait till my girls are in college and I'll come back around to this, because I don't want to be spending my time writing papers and all of this while they're little. I want to enjoy them. So I did pause my schooling, but yeah, you can get a PhD in mind-body medicine.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of, you mentioned early on that you would be like doing yoga and in tears, and not necessarily like stimulated by something you were thinking about, but something that was like needing release in your body. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been there's some different books. The Biology of Belief is one of my favorite books of all time. What's the other? Body Ecology, and there's one other one, The Body Keeps the Score. I think these are all really incredible books to talk about the body and how we can store emotions in the body, and how important it is to do different therapeutics, therapies to help the body release different things. It was interesting. I'm also remembering my very first time having acupuncture, and I remember laying on the table as she was, doing the acupuncturist was putting, the needles in different spots, and I started giggling and I could not stop laughing. And I just said, I don't know why I'm laughing. And she said, it's okay. Just let it out. Like things get released. So it's not always like cathartic, like crying or, anger. It can be all the range of emotions. Right. So that was another experience I had. And I just think it's for the purposes of this conversation, not diving too far in, but just to kind of get, just to have the awareness that this is an important part of our overall health and well-being in our lives, is that we can store things in our bodies, and there's ways to release them. And then there are ways to use our mind, the way we think about things, to support us in that journey towards a healthier, more whole experience in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah. So what I hear you saying is like, there's a equal feedback loop. Like the body is informing the mind is informing the body, and it just kind of keeps going on top of each other rather than like a one way.
Anyway, yeah, I think, I don't know what part I clicked out on
maybe
there.
just start again with like
my response to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it is like a cyclical, multifaceted experience, I used to think that it was just the mind informing the body. Okay, if I think this, I feel this, right? But it's not just that. That's one piece of the overall picture. So it really is, multifaceted.
Yeah. What's been really fun to see with some of our clients is like as their body improves, like they notice like, oh, my periods are less intense,
Mm.
or I don't feel the hormone fluctuations, or my stomach isn't bloated all the time, whatever it is, right? And then they come back to the drawing board with more trust in their bodies and
Yeah.
more like positive mindset. So it is really this like they're feeding on each other rather than just the one way, like the mind is influencing what the body's doing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's so important because for so long for me too, like I thought it was the mind is influencing everything. The feedback is happening in both directions, and we can't just leave aside the body. If you're feeling crappy in your body, it's really hard to maintain a positive mind state. And like sometimes I've heard this in the spiritual world, and I'm curious what you think about it, is like they call it like the spiritual bypass, where you're like trying to bypass whatever is the experience is. I I sometimes have wondered like that's kind of when we're doing like affirmations or something, and we're thinking like, oh, that's gonna like overcome all the other stuff that's going on under the surface. So in terms of intuition then, and like what that means for you, and I'm curious like how it showed up in your life, how it's impacted your life or your decisions to do things or not do things. Because I feel like that's a also a really big piece of the fertility journey, is like, well, my intuition's telling me something else is happening, but doctors keep saying everything's perfect,
Mm.
right? Or things, I've heard that plenty of times. So
Yeah.
yeah, curious.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've heard that many times too, where someone will feel like something's not right, something's off physically or, health wise, and get all of the labs that they run, all the tests that they run, all are normal within normal range, right? But then if you have that feeling, there is something to connecting within and being able to kind of tap into what that is. And I know that that's where meditation is so key, and slowing down. There's been times where, and I don't know, your audience, different audiences are open to different things, and but where you can feel like you can hear angels talking to you, or like God talking to you, however you want to think about that. If it's even your own soul or your own inner voice, that's that wise part of you. When you are quiet and when you slow down, you can really hear that messages can come through. And I've heard multiple stories of people really getting clear on a lot of things, or really distinct messages coming in about something that they need to know or something that they need to do. But it's when we allow ourselves that space and that time to get quiet and really go inward. Because when we're so busy and we're going, it's really hard to tap into that inner wisdom. And also the piece that for me that is always challenging. I was just talking about this with a friend just a couple of days ago, actually. We were talking about, how do you know the difference between intuition and fear? Like, if this message, because I tend to have a lot of like fear around trying new things. Like, I don't know, what if something bad happens? Oh, what if even traveling, for example. And so how do you know like that's not like, oh, that's my inner knowing that I shouldn't go. But then I always push through it, and I go and I have a fabulous time and everything's great. And so one thing that I've kind of, that I understand for myself in that situation is, typically if it's a fear talking, then it's not true. Then it's not real, right? So if it's fear-based or panic-based, then that's probably not true. Now you can hear messages that might not be like positive and uplifting, but if it's coming from a more calm, grounded place, like I was mentioning before with meditation, then, you can move forward with that and dig a little bit deeper and, and look into whatever that intuition is telling you. Because I talk about that a lot with hypnobirthing students and families that are, preparing for birthing. There's a lot of things that you have to make decisions on. The example I give 100 times is clamping or cutting the umbilical cord. In hospitals, they'll typically cut it or clamp it very quickly after the baby's born, but yet there's so much research, so much information out there about the benefits to the baby if you can leave it attached. So, there's the information gathering piece, but also that intuitive piece that, this is what feels best for me. This is what I want to do. And so then being able to make the steps, speak to your, care provider and take the steps to do what feels best for you, that in your body, you intuitively feel to be true. And then if you feel that to be true and you've looked outside of, with more information of how that could be beneficial, whatever it is, then being able to have the strength within to speak that truth and stand in and be grounded in what it is that feels best for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that, because I think that question does come up a lot, is like, well, is this my intuition or is this something else? And it's really easy to get confused, but I like what you said about that, is like, is what you're thinking, whether it's true intuition or not, is what that thing is coming out of fear or anxiety, or is it in a place of calm?
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Like, if I look at my own life, and I feel like intuition has always been really a thing for me. But definitely the moments where something can feel scary, but it still is like, there's like an exciting energy or a peaceful, calm energy around it, versus like something is just straight up like coming out of past experiences or whatever it is, that even in those moments, it's like, maybe we just need to like break through this and like do something different.
The other thing I think of that I do actually, if there's something that I feel scared about, or like, should I be doing this? Is this the right path? And again, it depends personal preference on what you believe, and, and that higher power, for different people, it's different. But for me, I just pray to God and say, if this is not the right path for me, if I'm not supposed to do X, Y, or Z, or if this is going to turn out not in my favor, or my family, this isn't good for me or my family, then I pray to God to direct me on the right path. Like, if I'm supposed to do something, go somewhere, then have something come up somewhere else that makes it that I'm not doing that anymore. That I wanted to, I'm trying to think of examples to use so it can be more tangible, but whatever it is that, different things come up. Oh, I can't go anymore. Now I have to, do this other thing or stay home. So I feel that is, for me, that works really well, where I just pray and, feel like, okay, just something come up in my life to protect me and keep me safe.
Absolutely. And it's like just the intention, even if for those of you listening that maybe don't believe in God or whatever, or like have some kind of reaction to that word. It could just be like guidance, or the universe just kind of
or your own inner wisdom.
Right. Putting the pieces into place to get the best possible outcome for you, regardless of whatever it is. I like that. I think it's really wise to just be like, we can receive guidance all the time and have it just manifest in different ways. one of our clients was just telling us like she had created an intention in January, early January, to like have see butterflies anytime she like for confirmation that she was on the right path for her fertility. And she's like, this month I literally see a butterfly every single day. And I don't live in a place where there are a lot of butterflies.
Yeah,
Like it's not a
that's
thing.
amazing.
But it's coming like she's like, it's all my students showing me tattoos of butterflies. So
Yeah.
that's how it's showing up. And it's I just had to crack up at it because it was just like just butterflies, like the most random quote unquote sign. But I love it. I just love that. And that her that feedback is coming to her in a place where she lives in a very cold state that has lots of snow. Butterflies are not happening in
Yeah.
January. So it's
Yeah.
coming as like tattoos, which
Yeah.
is
No, how
hilarious.
incredible, right? That's so meaningful for her, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's, I think there's a lot of ways if we're open to it to just like set that intention for either like confirm that I'm on the right path or allow for other things to fall away or create me not doing that thing so that
Yeah.
I can do other things.
Yeah.
And either way works, and
Yeah.
different things for different moments, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't need to be the same way every single time either.
Right.
So yeah, I love all of that. Uh, can you share? So you mentioned meditation, and I'm curious if you find that it's meditation has kind of gotten this like popularity surge and lots of people talk about it. And then we have a fair share of people that if we told them to meditate for however long every single day, they'd be like, yeah, okay, good luck with that, duck. Like I'm gonna have to go find someone else because I'm not meditating. So I'm curious if you have found that to be true, or if people just like are willing to take space from moments in our lives. Does it just have a ton of baggage that we need to let go of? I'm curious what you what you've seen in your practice.
Yeah, it's interesting because you'll hear all the time people say, I can't make my mind go blank, so I can't meditate. And I'm like, if you make your mind, no one can make their mind go blank in perpetuity, like in perpetuity. It's
Yeah.
not, your mind is designed to think. It's different than that. Meditation is really partnering with your mind and using it as a tool to, continually come back to either the breath or a word, or a phrase, or focusing on a candle, flickering. There's just so many different ways about going back or going about getting to like the present moment, calming the mind, calming the body. And one thing I just like to share, especially with my students, because we do hypnobirthing, and what hypnobirthing is, and the different classes that I teach, there is a really good chunk of the time that we use for hypnosis, where I will read a script, I will play a certain type of music, and then I will read a script. And those scripts that I'm reading, to bring them into a deep, deep, deep state of relaxation, can take up to an hour. And so the one thing I always share in my classes is I say that this is the 1 hour that we're doing this out of the whole week, but how this is going to most impact your life and your birth is if you can bring it in more often. And I think it's just a practice. It's like going to exercise. A lot of times we're like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to go to that class, or I don't want to exercise, I have so much else to do. But if you take that hour, how many times have someone's done that, and then when they're done, have they said, wish I didn't do that, that sucked, now I feel worse. hardly ever, right? Unless you injure yourself, but you're always energized. It always feels good. And that's how it is with, meditation and any of these mindfulness practices, where it's always going to feel so much better on the other end. And if you're preparing for a birth, for example, the more you can do relaxation, especially if you're doing guided ones that are very specific to birthing, the better the outcome is going to be in general, or, for at least for your mindset. Even if the birth, we can't control how the birth unfolds, right? We can really prepare, but ultimately we don't really know. But even no matter how it unfolds, you preparing mindset wise, meditation wise, is going to allow you to remain calm and centered and manage whatever comes up in a more calm and centered way. So I just say 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes, 10 minutes is better than 5 minutes, but you do what you can. You start where you're at, and also like try different things, you might not like this person's voice. If you pick a recording of a meditation, you might not like this type of music, but finding different things. And in my book, I have a whole chapter on meditation. And then there's different aspects, like the breath, you can count your breath. There's different breathing techniques called pranayama. And that's a way to bring mindfulness meditation into your life, or the, mantra meditations, the repeated words or phrases where you breathe in, I am, breathe out, calm, peaceful, whatever resonates. I think that's the most important thing, is that each person finds what really resonates most and what feels most accessible and doable.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes it a lot more plausible that our busyness of life can still accommodate for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying makes so much sense. And like, if you can do 5 minutes, do 5 minutes. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're still going to get benefit out of those 5 minutes, and you don't have to. And then the other thing that I just want to reiterate is, you said you're not going to get to a point where your mind is blank. Like, that's just not what the goal is, even.
You have to bring it back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really that like cultivation of bringing it back off of the constant urge to think.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the brain just wants to do that, period.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about this thing, I'm thinking about that other thing or that other thing. And the intention for meditation is really just to like bring it back to nothingness. But it's really that process of pulling it back that is the core of it, right? Not like how much time you spend sitting with nothingness.
Yeah. You just have to keep bringing it back to nothing over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a child.
Over and over and over again.
You can repeat the same thing a bazillion times and still get nothing. And it's okay, because it's that process. It's like it's about the journey. It's not about the destination.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and the really like wonderful, easeful things that people can do to bring stuff into their life. I know that HypnoBirthing in particular is like such a wonderful tool that women can use in their practice, in their pregnancy and preparing for birth. Can you just share a little bit about what that is? Because I feel like there are a lot of women that might want to know for the future.
Yeah, that's true. Because, it's all in my orbit, and I forget, like if I say hypnobirthing, people, might not know. Even when I have been in hospitals with moms and they say to the nurses, I'm going to do hypnobirthing, the nurses will say, what's that? So it isn't super commonly known, but hypnobirthing is a style of childbirth preparation. So it's a class, it's multiple weeks, and the mother and a partner will come in and take the classes. And you basically learn about the physiological aspects of birth, but you also learn about that mind-body connection and the power of hypnosis. You learn what hypnosis is and what it isn't, and you learn beyond what you might have, with your preconceived conceptions of hypnosis. Like I always go back to my 8th grade, assembly, when there was a guy came in and just made us all laugh by, using hypnosis to make people cluck like chickens. But it's well beyond that. And it's really is going through all of the misconceptions and really helping the parents understand what an incredible tool this is and how powerful our mind is to support our body, and also how powerful the mother's body is to birth a baby. That you were designed to do this. Your body was made to do this. It really is such a beautiful course for parents to be. I find that it's supportive throughout your entire life, all aspects of your life, family, work, everything. Even though you're preparing for birth and it is a birth preparation class, it really teaches so many aspects that are beneficial for your whole life. And I gave birth the first time without any childbirth education, I think maybe a class in the hospital. And then I found out about hypnobirthing through a yoga class. And I did that with my second. And my experiences with the two births were night and day. Just my own internal experience. The actual physical birth that I did, natural, unmedicated birth in the hospital both times. But it was my internal experience that had just changed so dramatically. So it really focuses so much on that mind-body connection and how you can support yourself as you prepare for birth, and even after, in postpartum as well.
Yeah. And I like, as you were talking about it, I'm like, oh, I wish I had done this for my birth. This would have been so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it doesn't resonate for everyone, but for those that it resonates with, it's really powerful. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I feel like, gosh, it is what you said earlier, like you can't really control what the birth is going to look like, but you can certainly have lots of training going in to prepare your mind and your body to adjust and adapt and like not power through, but like optimize our ways through it. That I feel like every woman should know and have that option. So I'm so grateful that you're sharing it and doing the work to spread the word about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If people wanted to connect with you, where is the best place for them to find you?
My website is purenurture.com. And then I'm on Instagram at pure_nurture. Those are
Awesome.
just 2 spots on Pure Nurture podcast. I know we have 2 episodes together over there. I know the one that you did, our first episode, my top downloaded episode of all times. So you're still up there, number 1, which is awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
then my book, Pure Nurture,
Yeah.
A Holistic Approach to a Healthy Baby, where I share a lot about yoga, meditation, nutrition. It's really self-care for moms. And then, the idea that self-care is baby care. When you take care of yourself, especially during pregnancy, but also through motherhood, you are ultimately taking care of your baby and taking care of your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Thank you so much for being with us today. I can't wait for all of the amazing tips that we're going to hear from you for the rest of the week. And for those of you listening in, thanks for joining us today. We're so glad to have you, Kristy. Please follow her on Instagram, check out her website, and I think you have an amazing gift for our listeners. The top 10 popular childbirth education courses to browse.
Yeah. So like I said, hypnobirthing might not resonate for you, but there are incredible courses out there. So I created a PDF with hyperlinks to 10 of some of the most popular childbirth education courses out there. And instead of digging through Google and wondering, they're all just hyperlinked in the PDF. You can go and check them out and see which one resonates for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of your amazing wisdom and the amazing work that you're doing in the world. And for those of you listening in, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Was that an amazing episode or what? Make sure to check our show notes so that you can link up with our guests. And if you're not a part of our secret Fertile AF community, you can join for free via the link in our show notes. Last but not least, have you showed us some love lately? It would mean the world to us if you could share and review our podcast. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Egg Meets Sperm. Peace.